Hi, I'm Stephanie, and I'm a certified personal trainer.
Hi, I'm Kate, and I'm a registered dietitian nutritionist.
And this is a podcast dedicated to educating women on their journey to optimal health. There's so much that we can do to optimize our health, but we've talked to so many women who just simply don't know how.
These conversations are what inspired us to start Omnia Fit. The Omnia Fit podcast is all about interviewing certified professionals to educate women on improving our health. We'll talk about things like stress relief through exercise, what we need to know about our hormones, the truth behind fad diets, and more. So subscribe, follow along, and let us know if there are any topics you want to hear more about.
Hey guys, Stephanie here, and welcome to this week's episode of Omnia Fit. Today's episode is sponsored by us. We're offering 20% off a subscription for our website with code podcast2022. And I'll make sure to add a link in the show notes just to make it a little bit easier to sign up and you don't need to memorize anything. We have a couple different workouts on there led by myself and a few other incredible trainers, so it's not just me, and over 60 delicious recipes that are, my goodness, so easy to make and seriously so good, all added by our incredible dietitian, Kate. And all of this is designed with a goal to make a healthy lifestyle less intimidating and, dare I say, maybe even a little fun to achieve. We also make sure you have full access to both of us if you ever want a little assistance along the way. Ultimately, we just want to bring accessibility to creating a healthy lifestyle without ever telling you to stop eating or doing what you love, especially if what you love is cake. If you're not ready to sign up yet, no big deal. You can always subscribe to our newsletter to be the first to get updates on all the exciting stuff we have coming up, some of which is just over a month away, and my goodness, we are so excited about it. I'll make sure to put a link in the show notes for that as well. But without further ado, I'm so excited to introduce our guest for today. Serena is a certified personal trainer and owner of Serena Fit. She's been doing this for over 15 years and has pretty much seen everything you could imagine in the world of fitness. She is passionate about helping people become physically fit, but when she gets to talking about your mindset, you can really see her light up. She's a huge proponent for getting yourself in the right mindset before you set to achieve any of your goals, and Serena is amazing at challenging her clients and holding them accountable. Needless to say, having a conversation with her will totally have you ready to run through a brick wall, and that's exactly what today's conversation is about. So get ready to get fired up while you listen to my conversation with Serena. Hey Serena, thank you so much for being on the podcast.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, I would love if we could just start off getting a little intro of who you are, what you do, and we'll start there.
Awesome. Well, I'm Serena. I run Serena Fit. I've been a coach since 2008. I started my company in DC, so I spent about 10 years there. But I am a New Englander, so I'm from Connecticut. And now I've been in Philly for the past 6 years. So I've worked in every kind of coaching scenario you can think of. I worked at GW Hospital in bariatrics. I coached lacrosse for a long time and every type of client in between. So I held 6 certifications at one point. And now I am a biomechanics specialist and a certified fitness nutrition coach. And I specialize in habit building, wellness, and motivation and mindset really now. So,
yeah. I'm sure people listening to this can understand the mindfulness and the last words you said, but could you explain the biomechanics of it a little bit more if that's not registered?
Yeah, so really at the end of the day, it's human movement, right? It's the study of kinesiology, how the joints and body is supposed to move, and all the inner workings of like functional fitness.
And when we met the other week and we were really talking about this podcast, the flow that we really got into was all around mindset. And you said that was something that's really important to you, and you pivoted your business a little bit too. Could you dive into that a little bit?
Yeah, so about a year ago, I added the mindfulness pillar to the Serena Fit coaching pillars. So now it's fitness, nutrition, and mindfulness. And, COVID and the pandemic really triggered that. But in my opinion, if you kind of zoom out from, global chaos, really at the end of the day, what's the umbrella that everything falls under? It's that mindset, right? It's the mindfulness. When you have that really sound mindset and that kind of growth mindset, you're going to be more likely and inclined to make healthier decisions. You're going to want to be more intentional with your movement and your fitness. So before we even talk about weight loss, I feel like it's imperative that we talk about where your mind is at. What's your mental health practice look like? Are you meditating? Are you spending time outside? How are you kind of looking inward for some of the answers that can help you uncover a lot about yourself in order for you to get ahead in that fitness and nutrition realm?
Yeah. That's amazing. And like you said, people really get further in their progress if they have the right mindset around what they're doing. If they have the right intentions, if they have a good mental health space, they're going to see so much more in their physical goals too.
Absolutely. And the journey can be challenging. It's ups and downs. It's life. So, but when you have that resilient mindset, you're kind of like that arsenal of positivity and like just that foundation that you've built. Even on the hardest days, you're going to be able to get yourself back up. You're not going to have kind of like that all is lost mindset if you fall off track or, whatever happens. So, yeah, I'm really hard pressed on the mindfulness component now, even for myself.
It's kind of a sad thing that that's a profound way to go about training, just because it is so important for people to be in the right mindset. But it really is. I mean, back in the day as trainer, and I mean, in 2008, maybe you can speak to that a little bit. It was really, you meet with a client who wants to work out and you give them a good workout program, but how likely are they to stick with it? How likely are they to not ghost you and to keep working with you every single week?
Right. Yeah, super transactional, right? Funny you would mention that because I was just messaging my operations manager yesterday and I was like, I have some new content I want to talk about in the new year about why personal training isn't enough and why maybe your personal trainer at your basic gym might not be providing you the tools needed outside of that session to get ahead for long term, right? We want to be training for our long-term health and we want to be shooting for sustainability in our programming. So yeah, mindset honestly is the key to that. So back in 2008, yeah, it was super transactional. It was like, all right, here's $100 for an hour of your time. Well, much less than that when I first started, but here's some money for, 45 minutes of your time to train me. That's all I know. It's like when I think about fitness, I think about working out, sweating, like getting my butt kicked and then calling it a day. But the problem really lies in what goes on once that session is over. What are you eating? What's your lifestyle like? How are you sleeping? What are your stress levels? Things like that. So there's so many things to ask outside of the personal training session that we think we want training, but really it's only like this much of it now, right? There's like so many other pieces to the pie.
Absolutely. And when it's more transactional, it also inhibits your ability to be a coach for these people too, because when it's transactional, if they need a little extra break, if they don't want to be pushed as hard, they push back on you. You get into more of that customer service mindset of, okay, if that's, let's try a little harder. But when they have that intention, you've gone through the mindfulness with them and you really create that relationship with them, you're able to also be in that position of respect and trust where you are truly coaching them, not just giving them a good workout.
Oh yeah. And the person, I think, different coaches have different methods, right? And there's kind of like 15 different ways to get to the same endpoint, right? There's different avenues, there's different styles, there's different support systems you can implement. But I think it's really imperative. It's like our job as a coach to help that person understand the whole picture. I find it really, really hard I know a couple people who just train. Like, that's it. Like, that's all they do. And I'm like, how can you sit at how? I just like, there's so many other things you have to talk about. Like, you can't just throw someone in a workout without understanding what they're eating beforehand, or if they have injuries, or if there's any like gut problems where they can't eat certain things. And like, God forbid, if there's any underlying conditions that you don't know about, or eating disorders or things that people don't want to like necessarily share right away, but you have to create that environment so you don't end up hurting them and or putting yourself in a sticky spot as a coach. So there's a lot that goes into it.
And not even hurting them physically, but mentally too. I mean, you mentioned if they have an eating disorder and you say something maybe off the cuff about losing weight, or you make a joke about something in the media that could really trigger them, and you want to keep that relationship going.
Yeah, it's a different game now. When we first started back in the day, it wasn't like this. Like, it wasn't like this at all. But the coaches also weren't what they are now, right? So I do think it's it's on the client. If you're out in the market, you're looking for a coach of some kind, like, please do your homework. And it's okay to have conversations and almost interview coaches to make sure like you match with them, because it is kind of like dating. And I know it's a joke to say that, but it really is like that. You have to vibe with that coach. And then on the backside too, the coach has to vibe with that client too. So if you're going to be talking quite a bit, if the program is meant to be really impactful, there's going to be a lot of communication involved there.
Yeah, absolutely. It's just like a job interview. I mean, that's another way you can describe it. Dating, you both decide. Job interview, you're both deciding.
Yeah.
Um, and one thing I'd love for you to share a little bit more about your coaching style, because you mentioned that all coaches have their own kind of unique way to go about coaching. How would you describe your coaching style as? What's been successful for you?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So when it comes to the mat, when it comes to the workout, I'm hyper focused. Like I'm not necessarily there to have a conversation about what your Friday night was like. I show up, I'm super punctual, and I expect stuff from my client. Like I expect you to show up, I expect you to be ready. Like you had the tools from the app coaching and you have the tools from your nutrition kit. Like you're supposed to eat prior and you know what that looks like. And I'm expecting you to show up really with a positive mindset, be like, I'm ready to go. Like I want that I'm ready to go mentality from you. And not every day is going to be perfect. And some people have definitely clicked on my sessions and started crying. And in those moments, I have to be there for them, but we also have to set expectations. And that's where I've kind of now segmented the coaching. So I have SOS calls that I make mandatory for most folks. You have to check in with me at least once a month, if not 2 or 3 times. And that's the time that I'm able to deep dive, make some notes on their account in the app, make changes to their wellness plan, and try to understand their angle. Because the program that I create for folks has to be sustainable. And if something's not working, it's going to change. So I'm very hands-on, lots of communication, and the data we collect in the app makes my life a lot easier, but you have to engage. So like I said, there is this level of expectation that I have from my clients. So I'm very supportive, but I'm also like pretty straightforward. There's not going to be a lot of fluff here. Like we're here to get some stuff done and like be our best self. So you show up, I show up.
And when you first meet with clients in talking about getting them into that right mindset so they are motivated and excited to show up, eat the right things, follow your instruction, be in that mindset, how does that conversation look when you first meet with them, kind of explaining, because you're not, obviously I'm assuming you don't tell them to be in that mindset, there's some coaching to get there. So what are those initial conversations look like?
Yeah, well, I have a new client application that you have to fill out now, and I implemented that just a few months ago, actually. And that kind of sifts out the folks who aren't serious. And the investment is there. Like the investment is hefty, but it's because you're paying for someone. Like I've dedicated my last 15 years to this, and I've invested a lot in my continuing education. Like I'm not just like a beginner trainer or junior trainer here. I would like to also say that if I don't have the answer, I'm telling the person I don't have the answer, but I'm going to get them to the person that they need. And I've also prided myself off my community and my professional contacts. But the conversation normally is a lot of me talking, which I have to rein in at times, but it's also that person unloading, right? Like they're unloading a lot of things that I feel is representative of the fact that as adults, I work with a lot of 40-year-olds, as adults, we don't really have a sounding board, right? So this space that I create becomes this safe space, but it's also a place to be heard. That's not therapy. That's not your husband or spouse or partner, and that's not your daughter or your work best friend. It's a completely different space. So this relationship kind of takes on an interesting kind of energy for folks because it's like a place to grow. And that definitely comes across after our first few conversations, I would say. But those first 2 that we have, like that discovery call and the onboarding call, we're hitting the ground running, and I kind of want to see how you respond to that, and then we can gauge our next conversation off of that stuff. Like, where do we need to really focus next? What's next? What are you challenged with the most?
Yeah, and that falls into a phrase you said in our call earlier when we first met, is that you call yourself an instigator of change. You're not just a personal trainer, you are an instigator of change, but you can't have that without those deep conversations and creating that environment for people to open up to you. I mean, it's also a saying that personal trainers wear lots of hats, and therapy is one of them. Sometimes, like you said, clients will hop on and start crying. I was training a client the other day, and she had a fight with her husband the night before, and we just started off going for a walk and her telling me all about it to clear her mind so we could have a better session for the rest of the hour.
Yeah, that's tough. It's a fine line. I think if we allow for too much of that, then we kind of give them the path to continue like unloading. And as a trainer, we have to be okay enough with ourselves to say, hey, this is like meant for a therapist. Like maybe we can refer out, or you know what, maybe we should talk to like a life coach, because I think that would pair really well with what we're doing here physically and, you know, nutritionally. But you never know what's like on the other side, and you really don't know how you're going to wake up every day, right? Like we do the work, like we're kind of like the goal for a lot of our clients, right? That's kind of how it should look, in my opinion. Like as the coach, the client should want to kind of mimic your lifestyle in many ways, because you're practicing what you preach, I would hope. But, you know, you don't know how you're waking up every day, and you have to be in tune with that energy as, you know, a new client, and understand that you're going to find these ebbs and flows, because we're going to be doing a lot of like, you know, uncovering and unveiling. And that can be really emotional at times, especially if you don't always have support or if you're in unstable relationships. So you got to be ready on many different capacities as a trainer. But to be honest, it's worth it, because we're really changing people's lives, and we're literally like changing like the lens that people are viewing the world through. And that's like a privilege. That's a true privilege, in my opinion.
And it's also part of coaching too, with everything that you're saying, also coaching them on that aspect that it's okay to wake up every morning and not always be 100%. Some mornings
Right.
you wake up feeling a little shitty. Other mornings you wake up with 1,000%, let's go. And there can be a little bit of coaching if by the time they get to you, they, you know, put their stuff behind them and say, okay, this is my session to focus, let's go. But sometimes it's not always that possible, and that is totally okay. But a lot of people don't give themselves enough space and forgiveness to have that space.
And that speaks to mindfulness, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because it's your ability to connect with yourself every day and understand what you need. Ask yourself what you need, and then don't ignore it. Like we're really good at ignoring ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
Or being like, you know what, I'm really tight, you know, but I'm just gonna go back to watching TV. Like, pick up that foam roller. Let's do some, just like a 5-minute stretch. That right there is the difference between like discipline and then what we could view as like laziness. You know, these like very small incremental steps that get you thinking in this new way, this very high vibrational mindset that I love always saying, high vibe, because that means if you're vibrating at that like strong, healthy, clear, and that clear mentality, like everything else is going to change. People are going to respect you more. People are going to respect your boundaries. You're going to feel more confident to speak up for yourself, both personally and professionally. Your environment, your physical environment will clean up probably. You're less likely to have clutter and kind of like messy spaces. You'll probably be more punctual, and you'll be like okay with, like we're saying, giving yourself grace on days that you're just like, I need to chill for a second. Like I'm checking out for the next few hours, or I'm taking a mental health day. And being okay with like sitting, right? Like that's like one of the hardest things. So this all speaks to mental health and mindfulness, really it does.
And that's where, like you said, sometimes we can coach on it, and sometimes it does take talking to a life coach or a therapist or somebody else to help, because it's not always easy to find that balance, right? The balance of discipline, but also self-care and taking a moment to yourself. A lot of people, we want to see the world in black and white, but it's not that way. It's such a gray area, which can be very tough to navigate on our own, which is where coaches like us come in. Yeah. And, you know, coming up on the new year, there's a lot of that as well, as people are getting ready for their goals. A lot of people are excited to get going, and that's kind of the motivation. How do you, as a coach, whether it's someone who is your client or even, let's just say, a friend who has their New Year's resolution to start getting healthier, whatever that means to them, how do you help them make sure they're in the right mindset to not only just start, but to keep going?
Yeah. Well, I'm just going to be fully transparent. It's like I don't even speak the word like New Year's resolution. Like I don't ever say the New Year, New You term. I just think it's all kind of bullshit, and it's just a sales tactic. So my question to you is like, are you ready today? Mm-hmm. November 19th, right? Like, let's start today. All right. Well, if today doesn't work, how about tomorrow? You know, like it needs to be looked at as more than a resolution. To me is very short term, because who have you ever spoken to in the middle of June that said, I'm still on my New Year's resolutions? Like I've never heard anyone say that. More personally, I've never heard anybody say that. So to me, like I'm saying, this is a sales strategy that we all have been kind of sucked into. So the questions really just are the questions I'd be asking all year long. Like, are you sitting more than standing? What does your plate look like? Are you getting at least 10,000 steps in or 7,000 steps in? Like, what does your relationship look like with yourself? Are you asking yourself what you need every day? What do your personal relationships look like? Where's your stress coming from? How are you sleeping? So when it comes to goal setting for me, I have to have it be realistic. Like, it's gotta be realistic and reasonable. When we start from the jump in a realistic headspace and mind space, by default, it should be sustainable, right? So if it's, and I hate the weight loss goal. If you make healthy incremental changes through your habits and your systems, weight loss will be a byproduct of that. So if we can just discuss about what's going on in your daily, the habits that are setting you back and the systems that may have been broken, if we're going to be even thinking about dropping 2 pounds, we have to first discuss these habits in your systems. So if you want to talk about it on January 1st, we can talk about it then and call it a New Year's resolution. But really at the end of the day, this is like an everyday resolution and the ability of you stepping up for yourself and showing up for yourself. The time of year has nothing to do with it.
I love that. I had a new client consultation this morning, and when I asked her what her goals were, she didn't even mention weight loss. And those are my favorite conversations. It makes it, I mean, we're already like several sessions ahead of where other clients are. It's all about the sustainability and the functional training and all of that. And one thing I really pulled from what you just said was when I asked how to make sure someone's in the right mindset for long term, it wasn't even the mindset that you mentioned that really stuck out to me. It was the checking in with your surroundings and your environment and your space. Part of it is the mental health, but so many things lead into your mental health. And that's what's going to really make sure that you are going to keep going, that it's not turning into a 2-week thing whenever it is you choose to start and then you stop. You have to make sure you have that support system. You have to make sure you have those motivators in place, whether it's internal motivation because you truly understand your why, or a coach that's motivating you, or a friend group you started with. Maybe it's a step challenge, like you said. Just having those things in place, that support, the nutrition, that you are being mindful and understanding where you're at. And so that was kind of a huge thing I really love that you said about just if your environment externally and internally are ready to support your goals, you're going to be much more likely to succeed and push through to achieve them.
Oh, for sure. For sure. I couldn't agree more. Absolutely.
Mm-hmm. So once people are in this right mindset, what are some of the first pieces of advice you get them to start getting into fitness and start moving? And we'll
yeah,
from there.
Yeah. So I actually made some changes in my coaching in terms of the digestible nature of the programs that I was assigning, because I'm a person who's like, hey, you're in it, you're paying for this. Like, there should be no reason why you can't do all of these things that I'm asking of you, right? And I was wrong. So a couple months ago, I changed most of my programs to the workouts actually to 10 minutes, because people were literally saying, I only have 10 minutes. Like, I can't do these 45-minute workouts that you have me doing. Maybe once a week, so you can leave one in there. But like in terms of the daily, it's got to be smaller. It's got to be more, it's got to be these bite-sized pieces, because we're working with some crazy schedules, okay? We're talking people who are working 16-hour days. And I work with a lot of consultants. So my first piece of advice and or questions I kind of ask is like, what does your schedule look like? Like, what changes are we going to be making and the smallest incremental scales that we can start, repositioning what is that old school cube, the Rubik's cube. It's kind of like that, right? Like, it's a little bit here, it's a little bit there. And then once you start working it every day, it eventually all lines up. And that's where we have to just start, but we have to make a pact with ourselves. And this is where coaches can be your accountability buddy, to make it bite size, like make these tiny time blocks throughout the day for you to fit it in. And I'm big on day mapping. I don't know if you know that term, but rather than thinking about what's going on for the next 7 days, ask yourself what's going on in the next 12 to 24 hours, maybe 48 hours that I can look at now in like a 2-day or a 12-hour time span that I can get really tight on, that I know I can do. I know I can do a 15-minute routine today from 5:30 to 5:45. Done. Okay. But it takes effort and it requires, like you're saying, to get really tight on your why. I don't really use that a lot because I feel like it kind of shifts for people. But at the end of the day, it's like you want to be, you're here for a reason, right? So yes. But the biggest piece of advice really is to analyze your schedule and improve your workflow by day mapping. So then by default now we can layer in a wellness plan. That doesn't have to be 45 minutes to an hour. It could be 10 minutes, 10 minutes, 10 minutes, 10 minutes. So I love that. And I also just a big fan of James Clear, Atomic Habits. Like everyone needs to read that book. And I reference it like every week.
I'll link the book in the show notes so people can click on it listening to this. And I love, because also in that question too of what are you willing to change, if the answer is nothing and it's you have to make this fit my schedule, are you really motivated to make this happen? That's a big sign that if that's your answer, if that's what you're telling yourself that, oh, nothing can change, I can't fit this in, I can't do this. Is there any sense of reality in that? Or is that something that you're choosing to put in your way as a story you're telling yourself of your situation?
There's plenty of those.
Yeah.
And those people come off my schedule. People come off my schedule because there's just going to be, and it's not like a bad thing. It's just like, all right, well, maybe you're just not ready to be in this space. And I'm holding my folks again to like a pretty high standard. And when you're just like saying the same things over and over again to me, like, what are we doing? You know, like we either go deeper on this, we make this more of an intensive, or you take a break and you reevaluate your level of commitment here, because you can't want it for the person. They have to want it for themselves.
The classic, you can lead a horse to water, but
right,
make them drink it.
Yeah, for sure.
Mm-hmm. And I love something else you said too, because I love how you help your clients, even like you said, you have some clients that work 16 hours, but creating those 10-minute workouts, those 10-minute increments, even if people don't have a trainer or they do, just spend 10 minutes, go for a walk or do some sort of movement, play with your dog, like just get up and stand for a little bit. Just anything you can do in those 10 minutes. It doesn't need to be a perfectly scheduled out workout. It's just some sort of movement will make you feel so much better. I call them happy hormones, or at least it literally releases happy hormones to make you feel better.
Yeah, absolutely. I just had a client message me in the app last night and she was like, I've been doing 40 squats a night before bed. And she's like, that's my habit now. Like I've now implemented a new habit. And I'm like, boom, stack it. And now you do 10 minutes 10-minute meditation right after those squats, because it's more than that, right? Like I did a quick Instagram today and I was like, I basically work with intermediate to advanced clients, like in the fitness space. So like, it's not about the workout. Like you all know where you can get your workouts. Like I am a great trainer, but there are other great trainers who are giving great workouts out there too, you know? So it's like, you can go find the workout, but it's not about that. It's about how the workout fits into the pie, like into the day. And then where does your mindfulness piece fit in? All right. Where does your nutrition piece fit in? Okay. Like it's a bunch of things happening, right? And we can get all of these things from multiple different places. But as you referenced before, like I am the instigator of change. I'm going to ask you these questions and ask you to figure out like, where are we situating things now? And then I'm going to ask you again in a few days or a few weeks, like, how's that going for you? Like, where are we at now? What do we need to do? Have you now like nailed down a routine where you can maybe commit to 30-minute workouts now? All right, well then let's increase our activity. You know, so we work together to make this work. And that's what makes it sustainable. When you're working with me, that is my end game goal. And I don't want you to feel like you ever have to use me for years and years and years. This should be maybe like a 2 or 3 year thing. So, honestly, I'll say it 15 times over. It's about the habits and systems. It's not just about the workout. It's not just about one meditation or, you know, here and there, or just, you know, eating less. It has to work for you in order for it to be sustainable. So what is that? What is that? And that's a conversation, many conversations over and over and over again.
Because like you said, it ebbs and flows, and it takes some time for people to be honest with themselves of what's realistic, what their environment looks like. So that's awesome.
Yeah, we unlock things along the way. And I had one client literally resist me for like 8 months. Every time she showed up to a workout, she'd be like, I hate this. And I'd be like, it's okay, but we're here. And then something clicked. She did an elimination diet because she had some major GI problems, and it opened up this whole world for her. And she dropped like 6 pounds based on inflammation and change up in her diet. and it catapulted her into the next thing. She's a literally, like, mentally a different person when I click on the screen with her now. It's been about almost 2 years, I guess. But wow. Looking back, her attitude is completely different. But it took her 8 months. So
Of just
let's not fool anyone here. This isn't like a 3-week thing.
Yeah. And that's why you keep preaching the sustainability and just finding, creating that environment. So when the days get tough, when you don't feel like it, when you show up to your coach or even just your workout, whatever it may be, and you're saying, heck no, I am not about this right now. There's still a level of pushing through, finding that balance of challenging yourself while having grace with yourself. And if that sounds complicated, that's where you reach out to a great coach.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. We all need coaches. Coaches need coaches. I just hired one business coach in July, helped me organize a whole bunch of stuff that was stressing me out and affecting my wellness. So again, we need a support system. There's absolutely no way we can pretend to be experts in more than 3 things, more than 4 things. Like it's hard. So that's part of this too. Be okay with being like, I need help. I'm going to call on a coach and I'm going to tell all my friends about it because it's helped me change my life.
Absolutely. And for the people listening to this and just fired up, loving everything you're saying, what's the best way for them to get a hold of you?
Yeah, like I said, it's a conversation. You can head to my Instagram at Serena Fit Online, all one word. There's a new client application in my bio, but you also can check out my website. It's pretty awesome, serenafit.com. And then my email is serena@serenafit.com. You also can just Google me, Serena Fit. I'm there.
Perfect. And I'll also link all of it in the show notes too. So easy click if you scroll down.
Cool. Yeah, I'm excited to hopefully onboard some new folks. But it's more important to, connect one-on-one. So definitely reach out if you're watching today.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much, Serena. So nice having you on, and hopefully people just get inspired and fired up listening to this.
This was great. I love it. I could talk all day.
I know. We will talk all day. So,
Okay.
All right. Have a great one. Thank you so much.
See ya.